Today I'm going to be covering Joanne Dennehy. She is known in the UK as the most dangerous person in prison. She was known at her primary school for being a very considerate child, well-behaved, incredibly polite. However, there is a distinct change when she hits puberty. She ran away for the first time at 13. The family also at this point became really worried with her because at 14, so she's 14, she starts a relationship with a man who's 20. She left home at 15. She moved in with John Tremor, who was the partner, the 20-year-old guy. At 17, she's pregnant. She's a high level. She was also incredibly violent to John, to the point where she even threatened him with a 6-inch blade. That was kind of what brought their relationship to an end. In 2009, he left with their 2 kids. They were 10 and 7. I do think that this is the part where, for Joanna, things start to spiral really badly. You know, this is the point where she starts being very dishonest, she starts stealing, she starts carrying a blade. So she's escalating the type of behaviours that are going to cause her big issues in the future. In 2012, she gets a community order for assault. In 2012 as well, she got a 14-week sentence in prison for theft. This is somebody who's actually showing some really big markers for potential. And maybe if those markers had been taken as seriously as they should have been, 3 men wouldn't have been murdered. In 13 days, over 2013, she murdered 3 men, but she also left 2 other men fighting for their lives. But also, those 2 stabbings, they weren't the beginning of her spree, because she'd already killed before this, 75 miles away in Peterborough. And that's where this story really begins. And it begins when Joanna Dennehy gets out of prison. She needs to find a place to stay. And there is a guy called Kevin Lee. He's a letting agent and his place is called Quick Let. From the evidence I've looked at, from the police reports, there was motive when it came down to the relationship that he had with her. The other thing that I've got to bring in is that Joanne Dennehy was really good mates with somebody called Gary Stretch. I again think that was a relationship. And what Kevin Lee thought was, well, I've got this woman that I want to have with, and she's got a 7'3" mate who's intimidating. She's apparently murdered a few people, so she's obviously not afraid of violence. I've got some tenants who don't pay or don't leave. I think this is a match made in heaven. So Kevin Lee thinks to himself, you know what? I will employ these by letting them stay for free. I will provide her with gifts, again, because there was definitely something going on with them. And then they will be able to go around, intimidate the people who are doing their head in, not paying the rent or not leaving. And we've got a kind of perfect scenario. Job's done. And without a doubt, Kevin fancied her. So he's letting her stay rent-free. He's buying her gifts all the time. He even gives her cash to buy a car. So basically they went round to people's houses and they were like hard nuts. They threatened people, get out or we'll sort you out. Simple as that. Her perfect job really, wasn't it? And I guess at that moment in time for Kevin Lee, he's like, this is working. On the 29th of March 2013, Kevin has arranged to meet Dennehy, and he does, but then he disappears. He fails to come home. Literally within, a very short period of time, they find Kevin's truck. It's been burnt out, it's on a farm track in nearby Yaxley, and it really is on a proper farm track outside of anywhere local. It wasn't where it was expected to be. Now his wife said that she, at this point, already knew he was dead. She knew as soon as that vehicle was reported, she knew something sinister had happened and he wasn't coming home. And the next day she was told, we found his body. It had been found. And the way it had been found was awful. That day she agreed to meet him. He went round with gifts and she texted him and said that she wanted him to put on a dress and have and him. So Kevin Lee is going round, probably with the dress in situ, to treat her, to put it on him, and he's imagining that he's going to have a great time. And that dress was actually a prop to be used in the encounter that took place. So it wasn't so that she could have with him in it. It was because she wanted to humiliate him. Kevin Lee's body was discovered by a dog walker in a ditch on the A6 in Newborough. What the police imagined though, in spite of the fact that Kevin's burnt out truck and body has been found in a place unconnected really to who he is or where he worked, they felt that the nature of the crime must be connected to some of his close acquaintances. So they instantly start looking at who Kevin has been around. So the first thing that any police officer is going to do, they're going to look at his phone records. So they send off for those. And one of the reasons that it was quite easy to find where Kevin Lee's last movements were was because his wife Christine, who was completely frantic, who was desperately trying to connect with him, was ringing him constantly. And that meant his phone was picked up on a mast. And guess who else's phone was picked up on a mast at exactly the same time? You got it, Joanne Dennehy's. So now, Joanne Dennehy is directly in the frame. So now obviously she is a suspect. And what are they going to do? They're going to go straight to her house. The police walk in, and what do they find? Not Joanne Dennehy, but an absolutely chilling crime scene. And one of the things that they notice outside is there's a really deep stained mattress. Joanne Dennehy is not looking to get away with this at all. Her time is limited. She has known this from day one. It's more about lust. So now the police have got this stained mattress and they instantly go, right, let's do some forensics on this. Wasn't Kevin Lee's? And now they start getting worried about a man called John Chapman. He's a Navy veteran, he's a big... Not long after the forensics have been done, other bodies start to turn up. And this is when the police are thinking, this isn't somebody who's a one-off killer. This is a serial killer on our streets. At this point in tandem, the police are actually speaking to the public. They're telling them that there is a serial killer on the loose. They are appealing for people to come forward. They want these people apprehended ASAP. And the irony is that it's a police officer who actually gets in contact with the appeal and says, I've got the number plate, because he had just attended a petrol station where a car had driven in, the people had gone in the shop, stolen food items like biscuits and so on, and they'd ran for it. And they'd managed to get that number plate. And that's amazing, because by capturing that number plate and passing it on to the officer, the police can now trace the car. That car that Gary Stretch and Joanne Dennehy were driving, that was the car that Kevin Lee brought her. It's also the car that they used to dispose Kevin Lee's body. They can now track where the car's going. They pretty instantly find that it's travelling down the M5. They're also caught a few times on CCTV at service stations. So they're constantly having to steal food and drinks and trying to rob as many things as possible so that they can start to make some money. One of the weirdest things that they did, they stole a camera, and then every so often on the journey, they just stop off, take some pictures. Obviously, they're constantly trying to get money, and one of the ways that they decide to do this is to get in touch with an old friend who's got another friend who can, shall we say, dispose of items that others would not be able to do legally. And that's how a friend of Gary Stretch puts them in touch with a friend of his called Mark Lloyd. Gary and Mark had met before in prison briefly, but they didn't know each other. But Mark Lloyd and Gary Stretch knew an individual who connected them. And basically Mark came round to look at the goods that they possibly could give him to sell, and he could make sure that they got a bit of money out of it. So he goes round to this place, this flat, where he's going to price up the objects that they've stolen. And there are things like tablets there and lots of different items that can bring them a few quid, you know? Whilst he's pricing these up and thinking, okay, I'm going to take that, that and that, Joanne Dennehy pulls out a knife and just pipes up and says, I've just killed 3 people and I want to kill some more. Mark Lloyd has to take her to Hereford to sell the items, not because he wants to, because she basically says, you are going to do this. You are going to take me into Hereford to sell the items, because he's got contacts. So Gary Stretch, Joanne Dennehy and Mark Lloyd get in the car. And he is terrified at this point for his life. But then she would suddenly say, stop. They'd pull over, they'd take a photograph together and get back in the car. As they get to Hereford, Mark goes into a shop with her because she demands that he buy some. And there's this really strange CCTV, and it looks like she's putting her arms from behind him, round him to give him a hug. It looks kind. It looks like a couple going in who are close, but she's got the knife. It's actually a threat. She's letting him know, I've got you. I could harm you. And he said during that experience he thought that she was going to rob the shop, but instead she does this really bizarre thing and starts flirting with the girl behind the till. They then get back in the car, and this is at the point where Dennehy says to Gary Stretch, find me a victim. She also says, no women, no children. So men are who she wants to be a predator of. And as they're driving, with respect, Gary Stretch gets involved, and this is why I believe what came to him was absolutely appropriate where justice is concerned. But he points to this guy, walking a dog, going about his business, and says, will he do? This man is Robin Barretza, a retired firefighter, so a retired hero. He was stabbed and it almost killed him, but I tell you what, he fought. But within 5 minutes, she's just, as far as she's concerned, killed somebody. Drives around just a few hundred meters away, and Gary points out another man, John Rogers. John is a 56-year-old guy, keeps himself to himself, walking his dog, minding his own business again. And this was really, I don't know how he survived this. He's attacked from behind, stabbed, but then when he's face down on the floor, obviously with his life away from him, she turns him over and stabs him. She gets back in the car and at this point says to Gary and Mark, I want to do some more. It's pretty unbelievable, isn't it, to imagine that if the police hadn't have caught her within a few minutes after that second attack, there would have been so many more dead. I don't think I've ever seen a female be checked in at a police station come close to the way that she was acting. She's laughing, she's joking, she's flirting with the booking-in officer, talking about his eyebrows and how great they are. She says things like, it could have been worse. Could have been worse, murder and attempted murder. But the story doesn't end there, because the police have got one body, Kevin Lee's, and they've now got 2 seriously injured men. But very shortly, the police are informed that another body's been found in Thorny Dyke near Peterborough. The police officer takes that call, the superintendent talks to him about it, and within a minute or 2 later, the superintendent's given another call, and they say, are you aware of the body that's been found near Thorny Dyke? And he says, yeah, I've just had a call about it. And they say, no, this is another one. So they've found 2 bodies within minutes of one another at Thorny Dyke near Peterborough. Now we know that John Chapman is missing, and indeed, when they identify that body, it's him. Now the second body nobody was expecting to be found because they didn't know he was missing. That belonged to Lukas Slabozewski. He was Polish. The last footage that you see of him is going to an ATM and taking money out, and that's when he's going to be going round to see Dennehy. And when he arrived, he was stabbed in the chest. He died at her home. It was the first attack, and I believe it happened a few days before she killed Kevin Lee. So on the 18th of November 2013, she goes into the pre-trial at the Old Bailey. It is the most famous traditional court in the UK. And everyone's waiting for her to say that she's not guilty, to drag this out, to get as much out of the situation as she can. And then she stands up after 10 minutes and she pleads guilty. On February the 28th, 2014, you will not be surprised to hear that she was sentenced to a full life tariff. Gary Stretch got life. He got life with a minimum to serve 19 years. because he obviously pointed out the people that she then attempted to murder. Mark Lloyd did get cleared, and rightly so. It's not been an easy road with respect for Dennehy. In 2017, she and her girlfriend agreed to a pact. They actually shared a cell at the time. They were found in a pool. She'd cut her throat, her girlfriend had slit her wrists, and whilst they were both found, neither of them died. And one thing that's really struck me about the Dennehy case is those two children that she left, what happened to them. So I looked it up because I wanted to kind of find out whether there was any contact. And her daughter did go and visit. She wrote to her first of all, she got an arranged visit, and she sat across from her mum, and Dennehy apologised. She said that she was sorry for her actions. And Cheyenne, her daughter, said that even though she also cried and she was really sad because this was a mother, she didn't get the answers that she wanted. Cheyenne has also openly apologised to her mother's victims.